Well, all right, guys, thanks for joining me today. Installing the air seat in the 4430. That's a narrow seat well, and the air seat's designed for the wide seat wells. So you got to cut out this 4.5 inches. And so what I did was went ahead and put some poison on the radio, my headphones, and then marked my 4.5 inches. Tried to do the best job I could of coming up and over them angles. And then between the 4-inch grinder, 4.5-inch grinder, and the Sawzall, got that cut out. So all I have left is that corner right there and a little whisker right here. And then that comes out. Then we figure out how to put this in and go from there. So let me finish cutting that out, and I'll get back to you to see how we can make that fit. Well, there we go. It's kind of in place. It's just roughly sitting there. This is the first time fitment. I had to cut, you'll see, we'll go inside. I had to cut a little more than I thought because this angle to this cab doesn't fit very good. And I might have to take this knob and just trim him back 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch to allow the panel to come this way some to make it a little bit wider. Otherwise it fits pretty good up there, and along here it fits nice, and there it fits nice. You got your control when you're cutting the old sheet metal out. You got your control bracket for your SCV right there. But yeah, let me jump inside. So I put the plate in backwards just to give me a shim to hold it into place to see what I'm up against. And so we can see where I got to take this corner out to get me some width, and how I had to notch this and then take this piece here, and I had to flex it up a little bit to fit the shape of the green piece. Otherwise, for a first fitment, we're 99% there. And then so I think a couple little tweaks, and maybe I got some shim stock laying on the floor there I can use to get between this plate and the panel to give us a little bit of some fudge factor. And then when I go to install it, either plug weld them holes into place or pop rivet all the holes into place, and then just put a little stitch weld along it. Or a guy could, if you're just going to use the pop rivets, I kind of question if we got a good construction adhesive, wire brush both surfaces well, and laid a little bead of some construction adhesive, then drilled and pop riveted all your surfaces, and that construction adhesive would really help bond all areas to each other. Then get that folded up and try and do a halfway decent job. The black plate fits in there really well, and I'll show you that in a couple days when I get back onto this project. But for now, that's where we're at. It seems like a very simple thing to do. Just take your time when making that cut. You can always cut 1/8 inch out, pain in the butt, but it's easier to cut a second time to fit better than too wide the first time. But it seems pretty forgiving. So yeah. Oh, it's kind of mocked up. I got the plate in there. I got the shim in there. I got the screwdriver with a bungee cord to hold that top over to where it needs to be. And we look like we're forward here. Good. So it looks like it's in good position. It's just this top wants to fall in. So that's why the screwdriver's there. So I'll get that pop rivet in there and then come down here and just kind of zipper this seam up, and then when everything's in place, then we can get the hammer and get that closed up, that little wedge there. So yeah, and then we'll have to take the plate back out, because then there's a row of rivets underneath there that we got to put into place. And then there's that plate that goes right there. So a lot of work, but going okay. So we cut the cab, bolt in that other piece, that goes good. Get these holes drilled, this plate kind of snugged up where it needs to be. This plate sits in the cab perfect. I can't get the seat to that base plate. The instructions say use these nuts, use these black bolts, and then come through this plate to bolt to the seat, but you got all of that much thread. And the other thing is, you got these nuts sticking up. I could try to flip them over and just have the carriage bolt, but the other thing is I'm not having a nut as a spacer. So every time you climb in the cab, you're going to see these nuts holding the seat up. That's kind of bogus in my mind. When they trimmed this fabric, they trimmed it flush. They should have left a couple inches and let it kind of wrinkle up. They sent a couple nice Z brackets with the kit, and you're like, wow, that's great. Except none of these holes, no matter which way I put this bracket, it doesn't line up with the base plate, and nothing lines up with the seat base. So I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Well, it's in. I just used the nuts and bolts like they wanted me to. It ain't that bad. It ain't that bad, but it looks all right. Time to tear down the transmission. Got our charge pump. I got the manifold out of here so you can kind of see a little more room. The differential has a flat spot. Take advantage of that to help get out. The two tubes just go straight down. They can be kind of tight sometimes. So the tube that goes into the pinion shaft down there, I just take the bar and I knock it down. And it gives more freedom to pull that pump out. So the pump, if all you're doing is the top shaft, get the pump off because that's what holds the back bearing in. You don't have to pull the differential to just do the top shaft. But our goal now is to get the differential out. And you can see one bolt right there that hold this load control arm. And there's two more tucked underneath there. They're kind of tight. They're a 3/4 inch wrench. Then if you get them loose, you start lifting the differential out, and this arm has to come with after you get the pump out. So it's kind of not an overly complex. I mean, you get your bearing holders out of the way, but it's not complex. It's just kind of a game because it fits between this casting and this casting. It gets tight, and you're bringing this with at the same time. The only special tool you need for this is a crow's foot 7/16 to get this line down here. Other than that, everything is just nuts and bolts. I like to lift the differential up some, and then with a couple extensions adapted down to a 3/8 swivel, then I can get on this bolt up here, and it goes like downtown with a few less people usually. But I need my both hands to make it work. So I will put you guys down. And there you go, it's lifted out. I just choke it with a strap to lift it out. Dad he made himself a clamp that clamps the ring gear, just like your hand, and then has a hook and comes off that way. That works really well. But yeah, so it's out. They come out together. It's not overly complicated. It's just a matter of lift and wiggle, lift and wiggle, lift and wiggle, and it's out. So now we can attack our top shaft. And there's one of the nuts. Here's that stub that comes out of the bottom of the pump. And this will go in a lot more detail as we go back together. Coming apart, usually everything comes apart 3 times faster than you can go back together. And with these, keep the shim stocks with them. You can't mix up the bearing hubs from side to side, but keep the shim stocks with it, and because you can see the different size race in there. I wonder if we can make an example out of that. Yes, we can. That clearly doesn't go there. So just remember which side the pinion came off of. Hate to put the tractor back together with the pinion on the wrong side. That'd be hilarious. But you can't. If you have diff lock, you would recognize it because your one collar comes to that diff lock line, and so that means you can't screw it up. But now that'd be interesting to try. But yeah, so there we go. Differential's out. Now we can work on the top shaft. Basically all we got to do is get our end caps off and get the shift linkage out, this pipe out. Pretty simple. Again, nothing overcomplicated. It's kind of like it is what you see it to be. It's just take your time, take pictures, make notes of things as you take things out. I lay it on my table. I got my little transmission table. So I'll have my differential. Then I can have my ring gear with all the A, B, C, and D collars and snap rings laid nice, and then my counter shaft and top shaft, and then hardware. And it works nice to lay it out on this table. But yeah, so let's get that stuff tore apart. This is what we look like when I get it out. I'll show you how we do it when it's on the bench. It'll be much easier to see. Use my big brass, drive him out. Boom, done. All right, so top shaft, there wasn't nothing to show you on the top shaft. You just got 3 bolts. The bearing cap just falls right off. The only thing is the bearing race here will snag behind A gear. So you just yank it. Literally just rip it out of there. And that's how. After you take this shaft out. This shaft just slides out of the case. Your shifters come off. You've taken that nut off and you gave it a whack. Leave the nut on, give the shaft a whack after you loosen the nut a little bit. And then that'll loosen the shaft from the shifter. Take that out. Slide this shaft out. Take these out. Yank that out. Then the problem with these quad ranges is bottom shaft. That's the only thing that really causes some challenge, because you got these snap rings, and these snap rings, see, this one fits into here, but he won't fit into there. He won't fit into there or there. They get thicker. It'll only go in that one spot. So the theory, you saw how I had it C-clamped back there. Then you take a brass punch. You got your cover plate off of the end here. You take a brass punch, drive it backwards as far as you can. You'll hear the sound. You ain't moving it very far. Then what I do is I take another big brass. I got a big long brass. I come in here and I drive this gear forward as far as I can, and that'll drive this out, and that'll give as much clearance as you can. So this shift collar is sitting right over, that groove. And so what you're doing is prying everything open. You're prying everything over. You're exposing this snap ring. Then you take this snap ring, hop it up on the shaft, pry it forward, bring this gear forward, find this snap ring, hop it up, bring it forward. There's a thrust washer behind it. Bring it forward. Then bring this gear, then this snap ring, this gear, and this snap ring, or collar. And you bring everything forward. Then you can take a big brass punch, put it in there, and just drive it back. Drive that sucker out, and it's that simple, but it's not simple. When you're lucky and things go good, it really does go that good coming out. Your first time trying to attempt to get these snap rings up. So I bounce between, I have a modified pair of snap ring. So instead of having that L on the end, I ground that L off. So they're skinnier to get in there. Otherwise, you can even use a regular pair of snap ring pliers and kind of sort of fight with it to get it up there. Going together, we got a lot. Going together, I'll have a lot more footage of this going together, because coming apart is just the fight of just simply getting the snap rings out of their groove, everything shifted forward, drive that sucker back. Like I said, on these, they're tapered, so if you get the nut, away an 1/8 inch or a 1/4 inch, smack the nut, it loosens the shifter from the shaft. That's out. Now, when all this is out, your counter shaft is there, you just drive them forward, the race falls out, you pull that sucker out. For the most part, other than them snap rings, it's just taking some bolts off, pulling a shaft out, pulling a pin out, removing some shifters. It really isn't that hard, and if you had the John Deere Tech Manual, you could actually do a pretty good job. And so everything's empty, gasket surfaces are clean, sump screen is out, load shaft is out. So now we'll give it a steam cleaning, give it a good cleaning, pop these seals out. Tomorrow is order parts, so I need all new bearings, gasket kits, O-rings for the brake pads. The snap ring, this PTO shaft, you just got this 2 nuts and 4 bolts. This housing just comes right off. Sometimes you just smack your stub shaft with a hammer and it'll come loose. A big gear will be loose there. But there's a snap ring that fits right into here. And can't see from that angle. But there's a snap ring in there. You go in with some long needle nose, pinch them together and pull it backwards, and it usually falls out. You'll swear more putting it back in. You're going to curse a lot at that one. You'd almost rather do the bottom shaft than put that snap ring in sometimes. But for the most part, I didn't get a whole lot of footage because there isn't a whole lot to talk about. But he's apart. Pump is washed up, ready for rebuild. The front end is ready for cleaning. So I'm not sure. Here's our clutch housing. We got him washed up, so we just got to get that bearing for the front of the PTO. There's your big PTO drive gear. There's your high-low, your 2-speed unit, and there's your perma-clutch. We got a lot to talk about as this stuff goes back together. Trust me, we got a lot to talk about. We got hundreds of videos yet to do on this stuff. But there's your clutch housing. I think the next step is to get this front end out and washed, and then keep working on engine, get clutch and stuff transferred over, and then with this front end washed and everything cleaned up good, see if we can't get the engine mounted into here, and or not, or wait till the rear end is all back together, whatever keeps the guy moving forwards. But yeah, 1 million hours of work left to do. We're gonna have probably a couple hundred hours into this tractor. So yeah, all right, that's long enough. I'll leave you there. Thank you guys for watching, and I can't wait. Karen's already been sitting in here sliding the seat forward and backward and spinning it. So we just got to finish pulling the cab. We got to pull that floor plate out, straighten up that kick panel area, and start getting that ready for a new interior. We still got to tear down the steering and all that stuff yet, rebuild the steering. Whoo, we got axles to do. Holy crap, we got a lot of work to do. And then when I get done with this one, there's another 4430 out the door again.